Assalamu alaikum fam, hope you're doing fantastic. Let's continue our reading of Nietzsche's Thus Spoke Zarathustra. We had an awesome dialogue between the saint and Zarathustra. It's been fantastic. Let's continue. And what is the saint doing in the forest? Asked Zarathustra. The saint answered, I make songs and sing them. And when I make songs, I laugh, cry, and hum. Thus I praise God, with singing, crying, laughing, and humming. I praise the God who is my God, but what do you bring us as a gift? So here it's like his voice and his emotions really being a sort of offering to God. Now notice how he said bird among birds. What do birds do? They sing, right? They are harbingers of something, right? Each tone of a bird, you can identify it and find it, and then you know what that bird's going to be up to if you hear it. If I hear a turkey vulture, I know he's looking for something dead, and I know something dead is nearby. If I hear a blue jay that's very distinct, sometimes you can find out that maybe they have discovered some fruit or they're playing, and even some birds, they make certain mating calls, and you can know that, hey, those birds are doing what they have to do. And then there's some sparrows in the morning, they have a very specific call that it's like you hear it mainly just in the morning, right? So it's very interesting how he uses this bird example. And now he's going to ask him, what are you going to bring us? Because remember, the gift Zarathustra was talking about was wisdom, right? So let's see. When Zarathustra had heard these words, he bade the saint farewell and said, what could I have to give you? But let me go quickly, lest I take something from you. You see that? It's like, can he take, it's not money, but it's like take peace of mind, take wisdom. You never know. Like, what does he mean by that? And thus they separated, the old one and the man, laughing as two boys laugh. So they're having a good time, right? They're having a good time. But when Zarathustra was alone, he spoke thus to his heart. Could it be possible this old saint in the forest has not yet heard of anything of this, that God is dead? So here, this is one of the most famous things, and it means the actions, people remembering God, acting in ways that would show that they don't believe God exists. So morality, decency, right? Doesn't mean like that God literally had a heart attack. Just means that unrighteousness and lack of reflection upon a higher being has taken hold of the populace. When Zarathustra came into the next town, which lies on the edge of the forest, he found many people gathered together in the marketplace, for it had been promised that there would be a tightrope walker. And Zarathustra spoke thus to the people, I teach you, the overman, man is something that shall be overcome. What have you done to overcome him? So here, he's like going to the people, and they might not be ready for this, right? He's exiting the forest, right? He's exiting this sort of raw connection to God. Now he's going to go amongst the masses, and he wants to drop wisdom on them to how they can overcome their own selves, their inhibitions, come to something higher, to elevate, right? To level up. All beings so far have created something beyond themselves. And do you want to be the ebb of this great flood and even go back to the beasts rather than overcome man? So here it's like going back to the beasts, so becoming more of this kind of Neanderthalish, like animalistic, just blah. Not someone who thinks, just someone who's this dead, automaton stuff. There's lots of different modes we could use to describe what he means, but to overcome your own weaknesses, right? What is the ape man? What is the ape to man? A laughing stock or a painful embarrassment. A man shall be just that for the overman, a laughing stock or a painful embarrassment. So here you can see an actualized man versus someone who's been sort of retarded, sort of restricted. They haven't tried to develop. They've stayed in their animalistic primal state. They have not like look at the behaviors sometimes that chimps do, itching their butt, throwing poo. Uh, they oftentimes can bite their own young. They scream a lot. They are smart, but they're very strong. Uh, so here it's like he compares somebody who is maybe more thuggish, more street life, who hasn't really taken time to learn anything of the higher orders of life, as somebody who is not the same and not even on the same level as the overman. Somebody who has overcome their weaknesses, their laziness, and elements of that nature. You have made your way from worm to man, and much in you is still worm. He's like insulting them, you know? He's like, imagine there's this hermit coming out of the woods, and he's yelling these things to you. You'd be like, who is this guy? You know? But at the same time, there might be someone there of wisdom who's like an overman, right? Who's like, yes, there are still worms. Now think of this worm aspect here. Because a worm doesn't have bravery, it is parasitic, like maggots, parasitic, that type of creature. It distorts and disturbs what it goes into, right? Except when it's in the soil, right? If you have a little worm garden, can help aerate your soil. But if it's like your dog has heartworms, you ever seen the videos of dogs that don't have the heartworm medication and their whole heart is infected with worms and then they end up dying? Or they use the restroom and worms are coming out of their bum, the poor animal suffers greatly, right? So, worms inside an animal cause much decay. They cause a lot of problems. So, if he's saying to humans, who he just compared to an animal, that they have worms inside, there's a problem. Now, soil, dirt, is the ground, it's the foundation that can be the nutrient source to grow the strongest mighty trees, tree of wisdom, right? And worms help to aerate that. Also think about worms in terms of bait for fish, right? So if the person is being a worm, they're bait for something stronger. The fish is the predator to the worm. So if you're a worm and you're not an overman who can overcome another person's will and obviously their own, you are bait for someone else and someone else's intentions and someone else's desires. So it's very interesting the way he words this. Once you were apes, and even now too, man is more ape than an ape. So here it's like, it is another example refers to an animal. So maybe the way the walking, the way the ape carries himself, the way the ape occupies himself, right? So, it's interesting. And remember, the saint told Zarathustra, stay with, don't go to humans. You just stay with the animals, right? Like, you went into the mountains with ash and you're going down to the valleys with fire, right? He's going to destroy illusions. Remember, he gave this sun example, how it goes and goes into the underworld and illuminates. So it's like, you also can reflect upon how the sun shines on some people don't want it. So when he's saying these brutal truths, he's risking a lot. It's like, hey, you guys are not ideal. Look at you. You are not overmen. You're a bunch of apes walking around, not doing anything productive, picking your butt, smelling it, not being good, maybe being, too, like, gluttonous, stuffing your face, And apes and chimps and stuff, sometimes they fight a lot amongst them, pulling each other. Yeah, they have their moments of grooming, but they fight a lot, and they're very loud when they fight. Kind of like humans when they can't get along and they're always screaming at each other. Whereas if you've overcome that loudness to a better degree, once in a while, right? But not all the time as much as an ape does, that shows you've overcome this sort of discord that rules your existence, right? So, man, it's so interesting, All beings so far have created something beyond themselves. So, creating something beyond yourself, not just staying as what you are, but to excel and go forward, and to think and contemplate on that goal and try to achieve that goal, right? A forethought. this is something very, very interesting. And he's saying he'll teach them that. So he's really just letting them know, I'm here to give you some wisdom. So he's really opening himself up, right? Very interesting. I hope you enjoyed this section.